Hey, y'all, grown black folks talk. I'm not sure what I'm going to title this yet. I'm recording this on Wednesday night, which in the circles that I run in is often called Woman Centered or Woman Chat Wednesday, WCW. Well, I had a WCW weekend, Woman Chat and Woman Chat weekend. I talked to five wonderful black women, and then six, I forgot about Karen, and then continued this to today when I was on Vitamin Cheese Live, Level Up Single Mom. I put that on my community page. It's a very important conversation how she broke down how the culture of men that we are dealing with in the black community are out here literally saying that if you're 30 and not married, you're a loser and you ought to just tap into all those things that makes for a good female slave and hope that you can get a man to deal with you after the age of 30. And then had more conversations with black women separate from that afterwards. So for basically, now I did talk to some men in here as well. And I have someone on the day that I see this going to be having a conversation this evening about some business opportunities. And I realized something after all these comparison and contrast conversations about myself. I don't have people around me that I talk to on a regular that are not forward thinking, future minded people. I don't. Men or women. I talk to a lot more black women though than I do to black men. And I really thought about this. When I engage in or review the discourse of women about current events and all the way back to the arrival of Africans as imported as slaves into the Americas, I talk to women and there's this expansive conversation. And here's the thing about it what I notice more and more and healing women, growing women are saying this Black men are not to blame for all that has happened. They're not the only problem. They are caught up in the problem, but they are also not the solution. Increasingly. And black men are frustrated by this too, because it's like, okay, we're not blaming you, but we're not centering you. And this becomes to be another set of grievances because when black men, the louder ones, get together to talk about the issues, there's oftentimes a focus, I want to say even a stuckness, on historical and present wrongs that have not been vindicated, and an attempt to look back on something in the past that was a time when things were not like this. Today, on Woman Centered Wednesday on Vitamin Cheese Live, Level Up Single Mom, a gentleman came on and was listening to the stories of women who were talking about, okay, now I'm getting the understanding of why I can't win this game because this game is being played by men who have a need to see us as something to be eaten or consumed. And this explains why I'm trying to live my life and men are trying to play a game. And this is what happened. And now it makes sense. This gentleman has to first have something that women did or said to him addressed on a whole nother show before he can open up and listen to and receive very gentle, respectful, get his chain yanked gently but respectfully. And I just want to say, shout out, Level Up Single Mom, publicly for a display of graciousness and patience that I and my California but raw Texan self, I don't know if that would have gone as well. I would have had to call on the Spirit of God to just hold me because this man was not able until he felt that he was heard and vindicated to give proper weight to anything the women were saying. And when you listen to men's conversations about what's going on, a lot of times it is a rehearsal of grievances. Also, men live vicariously in a way women do not. My pastor, Kiva Elmendil, actually explained to me black men's obsession with sports. And I've talked to a lot of men about this. Said, does this sound about right? And they're like, yeah, it does. That men live vicariously. And because black men are shown as conquering and succeeding in so few aspects of life, sports can become an obsession to seeing black men physically free to do whatever it is they want to do, to be enjoying their life and to be dominating, even if they're basically dominating other black men, but to be dominating. The mythos of a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or Jerry Rice gets really big when you consider it that way. Barry Sanders or are of course it escapes me now because I don't pay as much attention to this, but the big names that you kind of can recognize, Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham in their time. The big names that you hear is because these men were able to live a free life. But here's the problem: your obsession is with men who hit a wall at 40. See, it's black men that hit the wall. First of all, black men are living vicariously through men who are living a life that they never will. You take all the professional sports together, and you only account for a few thousand out of 15 million living men. So first of all, they will never reach that level themselves. If you throw in all the entertainers, but the same thing happens. Your career is basically over at 40. If you're in athletics or entertainment, unless you are really top shelf, athletes in particular, you're an old man at 35. So you wonder why these same men project on women that we hit a wall when they're the ones that hit a wall. They're the ones that get talked about like old slaves that no one can even sell anymore. I was listening to the conversation around LeBron James and Kevin Durant, and I sat there and I realized these commentators were talking about their trade value on the market. So because their idols endure being talked about like trademark value on the market, now they want to talk about black women like we're on the market with them. Then you also have the fact that the labor that black men did on the market for 246 years has never been acknowledged. And the United States never will. The United States would prefer to close up shop completely and become a totalitarian dictatorship before black people in general and black men in particular are ever recognized among the founding fathers of this country. Although Wentworth Cheswell, look it up, and Reverend James Barrick, look it up, and perhaps you heard the name of Crispus Attucks, look it up. If you want to put them by Jefferson, Madison, and Washington, you can do it, and there's good reasons why. Look it all up. But those things were never acknowledged, and it seems like a black man in America can do practically anything. Eugene Goodman saved the Republic. He saved at least 1/3 of the Republic in saving the Senate. And he said, I would have told my story sooner, but I knew it wasn't safe for me to do that. This man is married. He has a wife. He has a family. So even when you do as well as you did, even when you were the Congressional Medal of Honor, even when you do the very best that any black man has been asked to do in American history recently, you still can't get your full weight. You still can't be one of the country's heroes. In fact, your life is in danger for having done what black men are demanded to do in terms of loyalty to their country. This is a Iraq war veteran who has served his country to the highest level. And he knows that his life is in more danger after he has done the highest service to his country that any black man has done since Barack Obama left office. So men have a higher need for respect and vindication than women do. So if you put a group of men in a situation in which this is simply not going to be given to them, it is very likely that they will be stuck. And it is very likely that they will then project that on the women because men are like this. They do not conceive well of a world in which the women can escape and they can't. Although, if you study history, you find out that when any group of men has been completely conquered, their women can move on. They can't. They can't. Their women may move on and they still not be at the class of the conquering women. Nope. But they can move further than the men. And if you look at American history and you look at the access black women have to things, but here's the thing about it. If you are forward facing, you can make more of what little opportunities you have. If you are constantly trying to get back to the gentleman was talking about, it just wasn't like this 12, 13 years ago. Then you have men trying to get back to 1950. No less a person than attorney Dennis Sperling, who has his own law firm, was once on a show that I was on with him several years ago and said to another guest, I'm just trying to get back to 1950. A man of his intelligence, a man of his accomplishments, said that live. But again, It's because a sense of some injustice that has not been righted, and Black men appear to be at this time more stuck on that. And Black women are trying to move forward somehow. And if you think about the minds of women, let me break down something that we know but we don't ever think about. And do you know that every woman that got pregnant after April of this year is forced to think about human life in 2023? If a woman gets pregnant in August, her baby is going to be viable in 2023, not this year. The last baby that could be conceived and be viable this year was probably conceived in June. And that child would be massively premature if he's born in December. I know a little bit of something about that. My parents got married in April. I bounced around in January. I was not in, I had some trouble when I got here because I was premature considerably. That's so women's brains are wired to think into the future because that's what we do. We put in 9 months, making sure that human beings have a future. And even women like me who are in their 40s and have not born a child are walking around making sure other people's children make it. And then when I'm getting to a certain age and into grandmother's age, I'm still in the Black community going to be walking around trying to make sure other people's children make it. And then when I get to great grandmother age, if I'm still here, what I'm going to do is be telling the stories to bring the best of the past out of the past into the future, which is what I was doing with all these women, Black women between the ages of 32 and 70. This 32 and 70. That's what I was doing this week. Yes, we have to discuss the past. Yes, we have to discuss the past. We have to be honest about what happened, but most women are trying to find a future, are trying to find a way to a future. Us not being willing to go backwards is not an insult. Us not being willing to center men that are not centering us is not meant to be a personal insult per se. It's attempting to find a future with our real situations. But because there's so much grievance, and if you even having a conversation that talks about decentering men, the Black men in the community take that as a further insult because it just piles on all the other places where they have been pushed out of the center. Reconciling that is going to be really, really hard. And here's the thing about it. It has to be done on a one by everything that happens for individuals. We are not our ancestors. We are not each other. We are part of African American collective, but you were born alone. And no matter how many friends you have and whether you're married and have children or not, you will breathe your last breath alone as far as this earth, because no one can do that for you. Even if you were a twin, you didn't come through the unless very, very small, the birth canal with your twin. You came through separate. You will stand before God and give an account for your life alone. Or for those of you who don't believe in that, when you wink out of existence, you will go into law, you will go into oblivion alone. Although that's not what's going to happen. I have to tell you that as a Christian. But those of you who believe, that's going to be the end of you, not everybody around you. If that's your belief system, if that were true, everybody, you're going to go out. Not everybody around you is going to go out. And if change and growth is going to happen, it has to happen for you, for yourself. So there is hope, but every pot, as our ancestors used to say, has to stand on its own bottom. Black men, like Black women, one by one, have to get along with themselves, acknowledge the hurts and failures of the past, take the best from the past, and look toward the future and get to stepping. I'm going to put a video in the chat from Alicia Renice, the artist, talking about the year of yes. and about the fears of failure, the fear of this, the fear of that, the fear of this, the fear of that. And how about you just take a year and just try to do the best that you can? Now, the best that you can. Now, this will be conceived incorrectly by people who are lost to their perversions. Tony Gaskins tells a story about how he and his boys, their contest was how many, they tried to figure out could they get five numbers of women they had no intention of marrying, five numbers of women they intended to have sex with and discard. He said, this is how it was. We got ready for the weekend to go do this. And this is how it was when he was a late teen, early 20s. Then he met his wife and things changed. But this is how it was. And so some people are trying to be their best pervert. Some people are about trying to be their best spreader of STDs. They're trying to be their best spreader of babies that they don't want and want to put on these women to cripple them. Because remember, I told you, they don't see a future in which it be grievances of the past will be addressed. They don't see a future offered to them by this country that is worth anything. So their consolation prize is to have us beneath them. And once you pass 30, you're too fat, you're too dark, you have kids, you don't have kids, whatever it is excuse that they need, they want to find a way to convince you that you also don't have a future and to just submit to a present of being enslaved to them. Since they are stuck with this country, you're supposed to be stuck behind them. And that's consolation prize. No. So what you do while people decide what they're going to do is get around people who are forward thinking. Get around people that see a vision of the future that can be, that there be things built and things growing and things bettered. Get around that. And of course, there are whiny women too, talking foolishness. Get away from them too. I don't have them around me either. I could, but I don't have them around me either. It's a waste of time and energy to be around whiny people. It's a waste of time and energy to be around backwards looking people. By the way, this isn't just a black man, black woman problem. There are people walking around carrying a defeated battle flag because they feel entitled to live the life their great grandfathers and great great grandfathers did, where being a white man and showing up meant you were allowed to play superior to everyone else who was there, to the point that you could call a black man subhuman and have him have no choice but to live like that. And also, you could do whatever you wanted. You want to have sex with subhumans, but you don't want to give them the you don't want to give them the respect of being women that you actually have to care for. You want to be able to sell their children off here, there, and everywhere. There are men carrying around a flag that indicates that they feel that they've had something stolen from them and they would like to go back to 1850. And that's why the country looks the way it does. Because if you were to line up the foolishness the United States is in, you could either pick Germany in 1930 or the US in 1850. And if you look up those two things and line up, this means that the Civil War or World War II rebis are on their way. The difference is we can now, as American citizens and citizens of the globe, communicate with one another. Will it be enough? I don't know. But I'm making my little contribution right here. Thank you for listening. Listen to people. Here's some way to vet anybody you deal with. Do they have a vision of the future? And are they moving forward and taking the steps that they can? If they're not, don't even bother. If it's a man in particular, if he has no vision for the future, bye, sir. By the way, final thought, because I'm actually spending time this week working on our Bible study for those of you that asked for that. So I'm not going to have as much content this week. So let me just put this thought in. Another way to vet people, no matter what it is or for whatever it is. Do they have an idea? What do they talk about? Do they talk about their grievances? They talk about their hurts? I'm also going to put therapy, life coaching in the chat too, resources for people to use. Or are they talking about what should have happened, what could have happened, or do they just are only thinking about I only really have today? So all I'm gonna do is try to use you up today. I'll tell you any promise I have to get that moment of pleasure with you today. And I'm not thinking about children in terms of thinking about a future. I'm not thinking about anything except how do I get what I want from you to feel like I've dominated something today. Look for the backwardness as a vetting tool. Now, I may do another video at some point about the upgraded necessity of background checks and all the rest. Level Up Single Mom talked about it actually, but can't get up to all that today. Today, I want to talk about the things that I have observed from having talked to so many women and then observing, you know, what how some of us are trying to move forward and some of us are stuck in the past, and it seems to be a relatively uneven split. But no matter who it is you're talking to, vet them for forward thinking. Forward thinking with action steps that are actually actionable. That's important too. You know, people who are making steps into the future, people who talk about the future in terms of here are things that we can do together that are positive. Listen for that. If you don't hear it, because all people who are backwards are going to do is drag you backwards and saddle you with baggage that you just don't need. It is a whole 2022 looking toward 2023. And some people don't have a vision that they can carry viably into the new year. Don't be attached to them. Some people last year who were telling us that we as Black women weren't worth this and worth that are pushing up daisies now. No vision for 2023 there. Don't get caught up. Do not get caught up. You hear backwards talk? When people tell you who they are, Mother Maya Angelou told us, believe them. Get out of there. Spend your time. If you're going to communicate with people, spend your time communicating with people who have a forward vision. All right. Thank you for listening. You have a good night now. Well, no, for you, it's good morning. Have a good morning. Goodbye.